It is about the updates of our rules for 2026, and then it is about how to find certain documents on the IOF websites, and both these subjects will be covered by the Rules Commission Chair, Dr. David Rosen. So David, please go ahead.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the introduction, Helga. And yes, I'm the chair of the IOF Rules Commission. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can see your screen and we can hear you clearly.
Thank you. Good. So as Helga says, I'm going to first of all talk about rule changes. What he didn't say was that there's actually a little bonus section on rules interpretation as well. And then after that, I'll go on to talk about documents on the IOF webpage. So we'll first of all talk about changes to the rules applicable to World Ranking events. Then some changes applicable to knockout sprint and high-level events, and then about rules interpretation. So we're talking about changes to the rules which are coming up for the version of the rules that will be valid from the 1st of January 2026. So actually a very late change is regarding the rule about IOF independent athletes. And the IOF Council has recently decided that as well as the existing possibilities of gaining this status, people who hold a certified refugee status may also be eligible for this. So we've added that in. I will actually, at the very end of this session, just show you a bit more about IOF independent athletes. So that was a decision only a day or so ago. So the next change is to do with model events at World Ranking events. I should say, actually, in general, that Helga and the Foot Commission did a complete crawl through the Foot rules, and quite a few of the changes that you're going to see, including this one, have been made to reflect the way that things actually happen nowadays. Our rules were originally written many years ago, before the internet, and so we're taking the opportunity to bring some of the rules up to date. So there is no requirement at a World Ranking event for a model event to be organised. But it doesn't prevent one being organised or competitors being given a chance to sample some terrain with a warm-up map. But do note that Rule 20.2 still applies, that competitors must have the possibility of practicing with the electronic punching system at the model event or elsewhere. We've actually added that or elsewhere because there might not be a model event. So just bear in mind that you may be very well used in your federation to, for example, the sported end punching system, but you may get people coming to your World Ranking event who have only really used EMIT, and they do need, it just could be just one control to practice before they use it in the event. We had a rule about map corrections, which said errors on the map and changes which have occurred in the terrain since the map was printed must be overprinted on the map if they have a bearing on the event. Well, we've actually deleted that rule. It was written when we used to have large stocks of maps printed and used over several years sometimes. now maps are printed only just before the competition. So that rule isn't really relevant anymore. We've added in a statement that the map area must include all reasonable route choices. It's fairly obvious, but it seemed a good addition to the rule which says the competition map must not be larger than required by a competitor to run the course. So that new sentence is just a clarification and a reminder. We have a rule about loose control descriptions, and it used to say that you could give them out at the pre-start or in the start lanes, but it's now standard practice that they're given out in the start lanes and not before, so we've removed at the pre-start. Now we've got a rule about late starts, and it's got two sentences about competitors who are late for their start time. It used to say through their own fault. And then the second sentence, it says competitors who are late for their start time through the fault of the organizer. Well, we realized that we should really make these two sentences match up so that it's either one or the other. So now we say competitors who are late for their start time through no fault of the organizer must be timed as if they had started at their original start time. Alternatively, competitors who are late for their start time through the fault of the organizer must be timed from their new start time. So that's just a simplification and clarification. We will talk a little bit more about this in an example a bit later on. Interaction during an arena passage. We've got a rule saying team officials, competitors, media representatives, and spectators must remain in the areas assigned to them. And in the very first session yesterday, you heard about the incident at the Junior World Championships where a Swedish relay runner was tipped off by people in the arena that she hadn't punched a control. And we had a discussion about whether we should add something to this rule to say what people in the arena can and cannot do. In the end, we've decided, at the moment anyway, not to change that rule. And we think it might be better to update the fair play principles instead. But that's still an ongoing discussion. So that's actually a rule that we're not changing at the moment. We've added a rule, and actually this was only finalised this morning, that a competitor must not take any action intended to obstruct or impede another competitor. You won't be surprised that this is really mainly aimed at cases where competitors are running close together, for example, in knockout sprint. And the Foot Commission has drawn up some more detailed guidance about how to behave when runners are in close proximity to each other. And that guidance has been included in the bulletins for the recent Sprint World Cup. And I think the Foot Commission are going to consider how that's worked and whether they need to make any changes and what will happen for the next lot of World Cups with knockout sprints and World Championships with knockout sprints, which are coming up next year. We decided that we need to change the time limit for complaints because up to now, it's been that the time limit for complaints is 15 minutes after the full results have been published. And this has meant that you can't really be sure about whether there will be a complaint until all the results have been published. The very last competitor has crossed the finish line. You then be in the practice to make an announcement saying there's 15 minutes to make complaints. And it's only then that you can really go ahead with the prize giving. But we want to try and get the prize giving going a lot sooner than that, especially if the last competitors are going to be nowhere near the rostrum anyway. So we've now changed the time limit to 15 minutes after the result has been published for the competitor whose result is the subject of the complaint. Note that there's still the get out that complaints received after this time limit can be made if there are valid circumstances which must be explained in the complaint. So results are published almost immediately online nowadays, and the competitor usually gets a printout of their split times, and that tells them whether they've been disqualified or not. So they should be very quickly able to make a complaint if they think, for example, that they haven't been disqualified. And the same goes for people making a complaint about another competitor. If they think they saw the competitor do something wrong, for example, and they see that that competitor's result goes up on the internet as not disqualified, well, they can make the complaint very quickly. Just to let you know that we are considering the best way to modernise the complaint protest procedure. And we'd like to move to an online process instead of a paper form. Paper form seems a bit out of date nowadays. So we've got an idea to pilot a WhatsApp form in the new year, and we'll be looking for a few probably world ranking events to begin with to pilot that. Of course, Sod's law will mean that the events we pilot this new form, that there won't be any complaints, but we'll have to see how it goes. I'm the event advisor for a world ranking event in February, so I'll probably aim to try it out there. So just going through some other rule changes, one's relating to knockout sprint. World ranking events nowadays do sometimes take the form of a knockout sprint. Originally, they tended to be only in the high level events, but now they're world ranking events too. So we've added in and just copied the winning times into the world ranking events rule about winning times. It's possible to let competitors choose which quarterfinal they go into, and we just slightly amended the choice order for that, who gets to choose first. And we found, unfortunately, perhaps, that there are cases where we have to have additional competitors going into the next round of a knockout sprint, either through an exact tie or due to some reason where we felt it was unfair for the competitor and they had to be advanced along with the normal 6. So there are extra instructions to deal with that. And there's a amendment to the rule about knockout sprints that in a world ranking event, sometimes there isn't a very large field. Even if there are 45 or more entered, the number of qualification heats may be reduced and or the quarterfinal rounds may be omitted. For all levels of knockout sprint, the winning time used to be 6 to 8 minutes. We've now made that slightly a wider range, is now 5 to 8 minutes. Sometimes it's better to keep the race into a rather small area with a faster winning time. At high-level events, we feel that the course details don't need to be revealed in bulletins for sprint format races. If you give too much detail away, such as the course length and the height climb during the race, then that does enable people to work out where the race is going to go. So although you can reveal the details if you want, at high-level events, you don't have to reveal them. The information that the winning time will be, well, for an ordinary sprint, 12 to 15 minutes, should be enough information. Bulletin 4 is the final bulletin at high-level events, and that must be published at least 3 days before the first race of the event. Nowadays, people want to get that electronically and not just have it in paper form when they arrive. And we've added in some extra requirements for the model event, such as special terrain features, layout of artificial barriers, and marking of out-of-bounds areas. And one team officials meeting may cover several competitions. It's quite normal nowadays that, for example, if you have a World Cup round with several competitions, you only have one team officials meeting. And any extra information given in the team officials meeting must be published electronically soon afterwards. Finally, there was a rule about giving maps to accredited persons, but we've deleted that now. Generally, people are happy to get the maps electronically. For all high-level events, we used to say that the organiser must produce a report and send maps to IOF office. Well, unfortunately, the organiser very often didn't do that. And actually, the most useful report for both for the office and for the Foot Orienteering Commission and the Rules Commission and the disciplinary panel is the Senior Event Advisors report. So that is definitely still a requirement. At World Masters, there are nearly always competitors in the W90 and M90 classes, so we've added those into the rules. And at EYOC, we were fairly restrictive about when the event could be held. We've removed those restrictions, but obviously when the date is decided, we still need to take careful account of all the other events that are going on. Relays, we're trying to standardize the way that the relay results are presented. They've been a bit suboptimal, let's say, up to now, particularly where we've got relay teams with competitors from more than one federation, or where federations can run several relay teams, not just one. So we said that there should be standardization on the naming of teams with competitors from more than one federation. But we've also noted that mixed and incomplete teams must comply with the other requirements for the format, such as sex composition. That's actually mainly because in the sprint relay, we really don't, if the women are running on the first leg of the sprint relay, we really don't want men running on that as well. And we've added in a line saying the second and subsequent teams to finish from a federation should appear on the results in time order, but without a placing. In some versions of the results, those second and subsequent teams have just disappeared, but actually they were perfectly competitive right up until the time that the first team from their federation finished. So they should definitely appear on the results. And on the other hand, incomplete teams and teams with competitors from more than one federation, if they're allowed, are non-competitive from the word go. And so they must appear at the end of the results with no placing. And this actually is not something that the event organizer needs to be too concerned about. The idea is that they should upload the relay results to Eventor, and Eventor should be able to format the results to satisfy these requirements. So the timetable for the new rules are that they're
David,
approved. Yeah.
Can I interrupt you for a moment? We have quite a few comments about the complaints and also let me start with the easiest one. Is the change for the 15-minute complaint after specific runner finished applied now only for the foot O, or is it across all the disciplines?
It's across all disciplines, although I am just having a discussion with Trello because they have for a start, they have a lot of complaints, but also it's difficult for someone to make a complaint in Trello until they've received the solution map. So I think we may add on something for the Trello rule about receiving the solution map and a copy of the competition map. But basically, it's across all disciplines.
Okay, thanks. Then a couple of comments on the online and processing in that please make sure that all the results of the online process of complaint and protest is archived somewhere. One thing, the paper is good and keep written words permanent. And then another comment is that the good intention to change the complaint time, but the complaint with 15 minutes after the person's result is published makes it impossible to track and know when the 15 minutes expires. You actually get as many expiry times as you have competitors. So that's something. And then another comment is that the 15 minutes to file a complaint after finish will probably lead to more complaints. If there's only little time to consider, it's better to have it filed just to be sure that it's done. So those are the comments.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, there were a few points there. I'm not sure I can remember them all, but one point is that we'd quite like to move away from paper so that we're capturing the complaint and the response to complaints and then the protest, if there is one, electronically from the start, and it's then easier to archive that and to let the relevant people know about it, such as the Foot Commission and the Rules Commission, etc. I think it's fairly easy to know when a person has finished and therefore when their individual deadline is. We will have to see how it goes, but we certainly want to move away from this situation we have at the moment, where you have to wait right until the very last person has trickled across the line before you start the 15 minutes.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Then I want to comment from Kel about passing the information in arena passages that you know that we have a quite a long discussion about this in the photo commission that you can't really control what the spectators will pass at the arena passage there.
That's right. There's no point in having a rule if you about something that actually you can't control. So certainly my feeling is that pretty much anything goes. If we, it's unfortunate if we choose to have runners passing through an arena passage, then we have to recognise that there might be some sacrifice in terms of fair play. But that's a sort of trade-off.
Okay, no other comments, so you can continue, please.
Okay, so I was just saying that the new rules were approved in November and published in December. So they're just with the Event Standards Board, which is a subset of IOF Council at the moment, and we hope to publish them in the next few weeks. So just a quick section about interpretation of the rules. We've got a couple of rules, one saying sporting fairness must be the guiding principle in the interpretation of these rules by competitors, organisers and the jury. And we've also got a rule saying a competitor who breaks any rule or who benefits from the breaking of any rule may be sanctioned. So note, it doesn't say must be sanctioned. So we need to use a bit of common sense in when we apply the rules. So we need to think, was the rule violation accidental or deliberate? Was the problem caused by the organizer or by outside influences? I mean, for example, in a sprint competition in a busy town, we have to accept that members of the public walking around may have some influence, but we can't control all of that. Did the competitor gain an unfair advantage by their rule violation? And would allowing the competitor to avoid disqualification cause future problems? So I'm just going to look at a few examples because we don't want to put all through the rules this sentence. In the case of extenuating circumstances, the organizer or event advisor has the discretion to do something different from what the rule says. So let's look at late starts. As you know, we've slightly changed the rule about late starts. Suppose a competitor is late for their start because there was a traffic hold up on the motorway as they were driving to the event. So the rule now is competitors who are late for their start times through no fault of the organizer must be timed as if they'd started at their original start time. So this was clearly not a fault of the organizer, but should we be lenient and adjust the competitor's start time? Well, I think in this case, it's clear that the competitor is responsible for getting to their start on time. They should have started out earlier or stayed overnight nearer to the competition. So normally in this case, it's just bad luck for the competitor, and they have to be started, their start time starts at their original start time. But how about if several competitors are late for their starts because the access road between the arena and the start area was blocked for 15 minutes? Well, this is an extraordinary circumstance. It's the same rule. But I think in this case, the organizer and the senior events advisor need to use their common sense and realize that their start time should be adjusted. What about out of bounds areas? A competitor runs through a forbidden area in a sprint and saves 20 seconds by doing so. That's quite a lot in a sprint. He apologizes, oh, there's spelling there, and claims that he didn't realize the area was out of bounds. Well, the competitor has clearly broken the rules and has gained a significant advantage by doing so. So he has to be disqualified. But if a competitor goes out of bounds, realizes and comes back out again the same way, the rule is competitors must not enter, follow or cross areas, routes or features drawn with the following symbols. But we now have an established principle, going back especially to the World Championships in Denmark, that if a competitor accidentally goes out of bounds, for example, up a private driveway, realizes and comes back out again, having gained no advantage, and in fact lost time, then disqualification isn't appropriate. What about punching? A competitor fails to record a punch at the last control, though he was seen waving his hand with his contactless card towards the control, but no other competitors had a problem. So the rule is competitors are responsible for punching their control card at each control using the punching unit provided. And a competitor with a control punch missing or unidentifiable must not be placed unless you can be quite certain that the punch missing or unidentifiable is not the competitor's fault. So the rules are quite clear, but it's always tempting to think, oh, well, it's obvious that the competitor went to that control and therefore maybe we should reinstate him. But we should think about, would allowing the competitor to avoid disqualification cause future problems? It's the competitor's responsibility to achieve a punch. If we reinstate that competitor, nobody will bother to punch the last control in future. So we do need to be pretty firm about that particular rule. So finally, I hope that it's been helpful to get a preview of the proposed rule changes. And we plan to send a newsletter out in December, which will include the changes to the rules. So any further questions or comments on that particular section? Have there been any? Yes, go before I go on to the next section.
Johan Uusimäki, he had a comment or a question.
We got that?
Yeah, I think he lowered his hand already. But David Rhodes has a question that going back the same way, we had a case where they still caused the club to lose access to the wider area because the landowner saw the person. No disqualification caused a future problem, question mark.
Yes, that was the one about going in and coming back out of a forbidden area. I think the context does matter, and certainly if the forbidden area was a beautiful flower bed and the competitor in question had trampled over the flowers on their way in and maybe on the way out as well, then perhaps in that case disqualification is appropriate. And maybe in the situation that David Roach has mentioned. So yes, it's not a hard and fast rule. Okay, let's go on to the final section then. which is about useful documents for IOF event advisors. And I'm going to look at where the rules are, where the manuals are, and then there are a lot of other documents which I'll try and point out, and also something about IOF independent athletes. So we're talking about the IOF website, which is orienteering.sport, and here's the front page. And most of the things that we're looking at will be got at via orienteering, and you'll see that orienteering here means foot orienteering. So the rules are easy to find via that orienteering link, and it'll offer you competition rules. And this page has been reorganized recently, so they're a bit more logical. There is the full rules, and then a separate folder, IOF Rules Extracts by Event Type, which contain the rules for each of these types of major event: JWOC, World Cup, World Masters, World Championships, and World Ranking events. So note that there is actually only one master document, that's the full rules, and these extracts are, as it says, they're just extracts, and therefore you will find in those extracts that there are missing numbers for rules which don't apply to that particular type of event. But we hope that those extracts are more useful if you're just doing a world ranking event, you're really not interested in the rules for the World Championships. And then there's another folder called Supporting Rules, which contain World Cup special rules, World Ranking rules, national quotas for World Championships and World Cup, regulations for IOF independent athlete status, and World Games qualification rules, and the IOF referee system. Then there are manuals, and you get to them via orienteering internal event organizing. It looks like this when you get there, and you can see that there are links for organizing the various types of event at the bottom, 4 different links. And in those 4 different links, that's where you'll find the manuals. So there are manuals for World Championships and World Cup, JWOC, World Masters, EYOC, and World Ranking events. And these are essential reading both for organisers and for event advisors. Then what about all the other useful documents? Well, you'd have thought as an event advisor, you'd go to the event advisors menu. And if you click on event advisors, it looks like this. And look, there's documents for event advisors. So if you go there, unfortunately, this actually only has a link to the annual newsletters that we send out each November or December. I write those, so I think that's a really important page, but it doesn't bring you to all the other documents that you might be interested in. And that's because most of those other documents are also of interest to event organisers. So you have to get to them via internal event organising, plan and organise an IOF event. And in there, there's a folder called Generic Documents and Templates, and that's got many useful items, and I'll just try and categorize those and list them. So first of all, there's advice about cancelling a competition with various examples, embargoed areas for IOF events, There's guidelines for course planning in the forest and in sprint. There's the guidelines that Sondra was talking about on extreme heat. There's how to operate a jury and how to behave as a jury member. There's advice about prior knowledge of terrain, when and how much knowledge means that you should be barred from a competition. There's a guideline about sanctions. There's guidelines for senior event advisors and a checklist for senior event advisors. Then there's also some forms. There's the complaint protest form and the complaint to referee form. As I said, we're trying to move those away from paper. There's an IOF expenses claim form if you're actually doing something for the IOF and they're paying you. There's a meeting carbon footprint form. There's various start list creation aids and instructions, probably more useful for high-level events. There's an LP or linear programming for producing qualification race heats. As you know, if you've got 3 parallel heats, you want them to be as balanced as possible. But there's also an Excel macro for producing qualification race heats, and several other Excel macros for the final after qualification heats and for single races. Often those last 2 can be done fairly easily by someone who's competent with the spreadsheets anyway. And then there are some templates. So they're good starting points often. There's an embargoed areas for IOF events template showing how to set up an embargoed area and publicize it. There's a calculation template for major event entry deadlines. There's a template event plan, and that's something that's used for major events as a sort of agreement of what's going to happen made between the senior event advisor and the event organizer. There's a template IOF event advisor visit report. So certainly after each visit for a high-level event, the event advisor should fill out a visit report so that it's shared both with the organizer and with the relevant discipline commission. And then there's the IOF event advisor final report. And that event advisor final report is actually quite a long one, which would be useful for high-level events. So we've also produced a cut-down version for world ranking events, which I think you'll find better and easier to fill in. So, final topic, just about IOF independent athletes. Who are they? Well, suppose you're the event advisor for an event and someone says they want to enter and that they're an IOF independent athlete. You or the organizer really needs to check that they have actually been granted that status. So we're going to see how you can see who they are. First of all, they're not on the main IOF webpage. That you get them through Eventor. So go to any Eventor page, such as the calendar. Here it is, and you'll see there's a tab for athletes. So if you click on that, you'll see a form like this. And if in nationality, you just put in, you select independent from the drop down, and then you do a search, you'll see the list of currently registered IOF independent athletes. And that's actually the full list at the moment. There aren't very many of them. I think there's 16 there. But it's important to know how to find that list if you do get any entering. So that's all from me, but I'm happy to answer any further questions or comments.
Okay, yeah, Daniel, go ahead.
Yeah, hello, thanks for the presentation. Just a short question regarding the documents, the last part you was presenting. To me, it's always very hard to find what I need when I'm an SCA. I need to find something in some document because we have a huge amount of various documents for every competition. Do you or IOF thinking about learning some AI model which will be learned by all documents, for example, for various events, and make this public for SCAs, for example, through the IOF webpage to make the make easier to find the information you need, for example, through when you are working as SCA in the event and you need to ask. Me personally, I use AI model for that, which I'll have from all the documents, but it would be great if something like that would be done directly from the IOF site and will be open for all SCAs. So it's always, we are ensured that it's based on the newest and valid documents. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks very much. That's certainly something we should look at, and might be something that our colleagues in the IOF IT Commission might want to take a lead on. I'd certainly agree that it can be difficult to find documents, especially if you're in a hurry, maybe on the competition day. So that's why it's quite useful if, when you're not in a hurry, to spend a few minutes looking through the IOF webpage and looking at the places that I've just mentioned, trying to get yourself familiar with where to find things if you need them. I must say that the search facility on the IOF webpage doesn't work very well for me, and I've often found that just Googling works better than using the inbuilt search facility. But yes, I agree that an AI inbuilt facility might be even better in the future.
Okay, thanks, David. Kel has a question also.
Well, a question or a comment. It seems that the 15 minutes deadline for complaints and protests is still gathering comments and questions. As I remember it, I'm not sure how you put it in the new rule, but as I remember what is in practice is done often is that you publish the top 10. Meaning that you have the podium places in place, and you say that they are published in the team area, and the 15 minutes complaint time for that is starting now. So it's not that after each competitor's has finished, there's a 15 minutes complaint time for that competitor. Or
Yeah.
Do I misunderstand it?
Well, I first of all, we'd prefer to get away from posting up bits of paper. That may sometimes be appropriate if competitors are locked in after their race. Competitors are in some sort of post-quarantine where they can't have access to the internet. But nowadays, at nearly all, I'd say in Britain that nearly all, even the lowest level event, the results go up on the internet within minutes of a competitor finishing. So the results are effectively published almost instantaneously. I don't know whether that answers your question, Kel.
And there is a continuation to that question also. Björn Erik is wondering that the athletes might spend a different time between the finish line crossing and the readout. So how to handle this?
They might do, yes. Well, as I say, there's always room for it says in the rule, if there are valid circumstances, if it's say half an hour after you've crossed the finish line because you were either so exhausted or you got held up answering doing press interviews, then that might be a valid reason. But in general, you tend to move pretty quickly from passing the finish line to downloading your chip, your SI card or EMIC brick. You get your printout. Very often the complaints are to do with the fact that you've been disqualified, you've missed a control or something, and you want to complain about that. So you should be able to do that pretty quickly. As I say, we'll have to see how it goes.
Yeah, okay, thanks, David. Then going to the documents, David Roach comment on the documents is that the drafting the WRE and W Masters manuals effort has been made to include a lot of links that are context specific there. And then Honsa comments on AI usage that it's a great idea, but he thinks that the IOF office or ITC should be involved. So, Sondre, do you have any comments on that? That if there are any intention to do that?
Sorry, Jaska, could you repeat that question?
AI usage in general in IOF level, and especially in the documents or rules level, are there any generic plans to go that way?
Okay, then I see. Yeah, it is something that we are looking into, and it's also been discussed earlier also in council meetings, whether we can use that to make things more accessible, at least. But currently we don't have any concrete development ongoing on it. But
maybe something in the future.
Good question
to think about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so no more raised hands or comments in my part here. So Helge, back to you.
Yes, thanks a lot, David. I think we all got a lot of great information from you. So thanks a lot for putting all this together, and we'll see how